Ever wondered what forks, pencils, and light bulbs have in common? They're all everyday items with wild origin stories. From the quirky history of forks to the surprising invention of zippers. Come along as we dive into the strange truths behind 20 familiar objects you use every day. Number 20. Forks. The humble fork, a simple eating utensil found on every dining table across the globe. But have you ever stopped to think about its rather scandalous past? Back in the medieval era in Europe, forks were seen as a symbol of wealth and indulgence, often associated with heresy and even the devil himself. As a result, they were banned by church leaders who saw them as unnecessary tools of vanity and excess. It wasn't until much later that forks started to be accepted as part of everyday dining culture. The fork, while convenient, was seen as a tool of luxury and sin. This strange historical context gives us a fascinating glimpse into the evolution of dining etiquette and cultural norms over time. And it reminds us that even the most commonplace objects can have a rich and surprising history. Number 19. Soap. Today, soap is an essential part of our daily hygiene routine. We use it to clean ourselves, our clothes, and even our cars. But did you know that this humble bar of soap has been around for thousands of years? The ancient Babylonians were the first to use soap 5,000 years ago, and they used it not just for cleaning, but also for medical purposes. They believed that soap could cure skin diseases and even heal wounds. In fact, they were so enamored with soap that they built the world's first soap factory in 1800 BC. That's more than 3,000 years before the first soap factory was established in Europe. It's amazing to think that something so commonplace today had such a unique and ancient history. And it makes us wonder what other everyday items have secrets from the past waiting to be uncovered. Number 18. Eyeglasses. Today, eyeglasses are an essential accessory for many people around the world. They allow us to see clearly and help us to read, work, and enjoy our favorite pastimes. But did you know that eyeglasses have only been around for a few hundred years? The first eyeglasses were invented in 13th century Italy, and they were a far cry from the glasses that we know today. They were made from two pieces of glass that were ground and polished by hand, and they were held together with a leather strap. Despite their clunky design, eyeglasses were a game changer for those who needed them. They allowed people to see clearly for the first time and opened up new possibilities for education, work, and leisure. Eyeglasses have come a long way since then, but it's important to remember that their history is relatively recent. So the next time you put on your glasses, take a moment to appreciate the ingenuity of the Italian craftsmen who made the first pair. Number 17. Playing cards. Today, playing cards are enjoyed by millions of people around the world. Whether you like poker or solitaire, most of us have had a deck of cards in our hands at some point in our lives. But did you know that playing cards actually originated in China? They were first used in the 9th century during the Tem's dynasty, and were originally used for fortune-telling and divination. The earliest surviving deck of playing cards dates back to the 12th century and was found in a tomb in northern China. The cards were made from paper and had pictures of flowers, animals, and other symbols on them. It's believed that playing cards made their way to Europe through trade routes and quickly became popular. It wasn't long before they were being used for gambling and other forms of entertainment. Playing cards have come a long way since their humble beginnings in China, but it's fun to know that they have such a rich history and cultural significance. Number 16. Umbrellas. Right? They're a must-have for anyone dealing with rain or sun. They protect you from both, making them super handy in any season. But guess what? Umbrellas have been around for ages. The earliest use dates back to ancient Egypt, where they shielded folks from the blazing sun. Back then, only the high-status people had them as a sign of wealth. As time went on, they became practical for everyday life, helping farmers keep their crops dry and travelers stay comfortable. It wasn't until the 17th century that umbrellas turned into fashion statements. During the Victorian era, everyone flaunted their stylish parasols. Today, umbrellas are still a hit worldwide, evolving from fancy Victorian designs to the practical ones we use now. Number 15. Toothbrush. Maintaining good oral hygiene is essential for a healthy smile and overall well-being. Brushing your teeth helps remove plaque and bacteria, preventing gum disease and cavities. However, the toothbrush as we know it today is a relatively recent invention. Before the 1400s, people used various methods to clean their teeth, such as using twigs, leaves, and animal bones as makeshift brushes. In China, the first primitive toothbrushes were made from animal hair tied to a bone or a stick. Toothpaste was also developed in China around 500 AD and was made from ingredients such as salt, flowers, and animal fat. These early forms of oral care were not very effective and often did more harm than good. It wasn't until the 1400s when the first primitive toothbrush made from a bone handle and bristles made from hog hair was invented. This was followed by the invention of the modern toothbrush in the early 1900s, which greatly improved oral care practices worldwide. Number 14. Paperclips. The humble paperclip may seem like a simple office supply, but its history is actually quite interesting. It was invented in Norway in 1867 by a man named Johan Vogler. He initially called it a paper bend, because it could bend paper into a loop shape, making it easier to fasten papers together. While the paperclip was useful, it wasn't widely adopted at first. In fact, it took several decades for the paperclip to gain popularity. However, during World War II, the Norwegian resistance movement began using paperclips as a symbol of defiance against the Nazi occupation. They distributed paperclips to civilians, urging them to use them as a replacement for metal paperclips that could be used as ammunition by the Germans. This act of resistance helped to make the paperclip a popular symbol of courage and resilience. Today, the paperclip remains a staple in offices and schools around the world. Number 13. Buttons. The humble button is something we encounter every day, holding our clothes together and adding a touch of style to our outfits. But have you ever wondered about the strange history of this everyday item? Buttons actually started out as a form of jewelry, with early examples dating back to the time of the Roman Empire. They were typically made from precious metals and adorned with jewels and intricate designs. The word button itself comes from the Old French word bouton, meaning little knob. It wasn't until the 15th century that buttons began to be used for their practical purpose of fastening clothes. Initially, they were primarily used by the wealthy as a way to keep their garments in place, while still showing off their status with the decorative designs. As sewing machines and mass production techniques became more common in the 19th century, buttons became cheaper and more widely available to the general public. Today, buttons come in a wide variety of shapes, sizes, and materials, from plastic and metal to wood and glass. They're an essential part of our clothing and an enduring testament to the evolution of fashion and technology. Number 12. Zippers. The zipper, also known as the vislin or zipper, is a type of separable closure used on garments and bags. It consists of a series of interlocking teeth that slide together to form a continuous closure. The zipper was invented in the late 19th century, but it wasn't immediately accepted by the fashion industry. In fact, it was seen as a strange and impractical novelty item for several decades. The first zippers were bulky and difficult to use, and many people thought they were too similar to the hook and eye closures that were already in use. However, in the 1930s, the zipper began to gain popularity. The development of lighter and more durable fabrics made it possible to create zippers that were more compact and easier to use. And as the fashion industry continued to evolve, the zipper eventually became a staple of modern clothing. Number 11. Matches. Matches are a common household item that we use every day to start fires. However, they weren't invented intentionally. The discovery of matches was completely accidental. In 1826, a London chemist named John Walker was experimenting with various chemical compounds. He mixed sulfur, sulfide of antimony, and lead oxide and applied some of the mixture to a piece of string. Not realizing that the compound was flammable, he scraped some of the string across a hearth and it ignited, starting the first fire that could be produced reliably by friction. It took several more decades for matches to become commercially available, but Walker's accidental discovery paved the way for one of the most important inventions of the Industrial Revolution. Number 10. Salt. In today's world, salt is a common seasoning that we use to add flavor to our food. However, its uses go far beyond the kitchen. For centuries, salt was used as a form of currency, a preservative for food, and even a form of payment for workers. Ancient civilizations such as the Romans and Egyptians used salt to preserve food, and it was also used to season meat and vegetables. Salt was so valuable that it was often traded by merchants and was even used as a form of payment for goods and services. In fact, the word salary is derived from the Latin word for salt, reflecting its importance as a commodity. During the Middle Ages, salt was an important source of revenue for kings and queens, and they often levied taxes on the sale of salt. The use of salt as a form of currency eventually declined, but it continues to be an important ingredient in our kitchens today. Number 9. Keys. Keys are an essential part of our daily lives, allowing us to unlock our homes, cars, and other important spaces. But have you ever wondered about the strange history of this everyday item? The earliest evidence of keys dates back to ancient Egypt, where they were used as a symbol of power and wealth. At the time, only the pharaohs and the elite members of society were allowed to have keys, and they were often made from precious materials like gold and silver. Over the centuries, keys have evolved in both function and design. The simple padlock key we're familiar with today didn't appear until the 17th century. Since then, keys have become an essential part of our lives, allowing us to secure our belongings and maintain our privacy. Number 8. Scissors. Scissors are a common household item that we use every day for cutting paper, fabric, and other materials. But did you know that they have a surprisingly ancient history? The first scissors were invented by the Egyptians around 3,000 years ago. They were made from bronze and had sharp blades that could cut through various materials with ease. Scissors then spread to other cultures, including the Greeks and Romans, who used them for a variety of purposes, from grooming to crafting. During the Middle Ages, scissors became more common in Europe, and barbers were among the first to use them for shaving and trimming. In the 18th century, the first scissor-like shears were developed, which were used for cutting cloth. Today, scissors come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes, from small nail scissors to large fabric shears, and they remain an essential tool for anyone who needs to cut materials quickly and efficiently. Number 7. Clocks. Telling the time is essential to our everyday lives. We rely on clocks to schedule our appointments, plan our day, and even wake up in the morning. But have you ever stopped to think about how clocks work and how they came to be such an integral part of our daily lives? The earliest clocks date back to ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, where sundials were used to tell the time by tracking the position of the sun in the sky. Mechanical clocks, on the other hand, were invented in the 13th century in Europe and were powered by weights or springs. These early clocks were large and expensive, but they were still an improvement over sundials, which could only be used when the sun was shining. Over the centuries, clocks have become smaller and more affordable, and today they're found in almost every home and workplace. From the first sundials to the smartphones we use today, clocks have come a long way, but they remain an indispensable part of modern life. Number 6. Mirrors. Mirrors are an integral part of our daily routines, allowing us to check our appearance and make sure we look our best. But have you ever stopped to think about the fascinating history of this everyday object? The first mirrors were made from polished obsidian, a naturally occurring volcanic glass, and were used by ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Romans. During the Middle Ages, mirrors were rare and expensive, often made from highly polished metal. In the 16th century, glass mirrors began to be produced in Venice, and they quickly became popular throughout Europe. Today, mirrors are found in almost every home and public building, and they've become an essential part of our culture. Number 5. Shoes. Shoes are an essential part of our daily lives, protecting our feet and keeping them comfortable. But did you know that shoes have been around for thousands of years? Evidence suggests that humans have been wearing shoes since as early as 10,000 years ago. Early shoes were likely made from animal skins and were designed to protect the wearer's feet from the elements and rough terrain. Over the centuries, shoes have evolved into a variety of styles and designs, from sandals to boots and sneakers. In the 15th century, the shoe industry began to develop in Europe, with different regions specializing in different types of footwear. Today, shoes are a ubiquitous part of our culture, and there's a shoe for every occasion. Number 4. Pencils. Pencils are a staple of school supplies and are used by millions of students every day. But did you know that they have a fascinating history? The first pencils were actually graphite sticks that were wrapped in string or cloth. They were discovered in England in the 16th century and were initially used for marking sheet. It wasn't until the 19th century that pencils became more refined, with the invention of the mechanical pencil and the introduction of colored pencils. Interestingly, graphite was initially mistaken for lead, and it wasn't until later that scientists realized that it was a different mineral altogether. Today, pencils are available in a range of hardnesses, from 9H, which is the hardest, to 9B, which is the softest. They remain an essential tool for artists, writers, and students alike. Number 3. Coffee. Coffee is a beloved beverage that millions of people rely on to get through the day. But did you know that it has a strange and fascinating history? The coffee plant is believed to have originated in Ethiopia, and the first written record of coffee drinking dates back to the 15th century. In Mecca, coffee was initially banned due to its stimulating effects, and it was seen as a distraction from religious practices. However, coffee eventually made its way to other parts of the world, including Europe, where it became popular among intellectuals and artists. Today, coffee is enjoyed around the world, and there's a wide variety of coffee drinks to choose from espresso to latte. Number 2. Chairs. Chairs are an essential piece of furniture that we use every day, whether at home, in the office, or in a restaurant. But did you know that chairs have a surprisingly rich history? Some of the earliest chairs were ceremonial objects used by royalty and other members of the elite. They were often highly decorated and served as a symbol of power and wealth. During the Middle Ages, chairs began to be used more widely, and different regions developed their own styles of chairs. In the 18th century, chairs became an important part of the furniture industry, and famous designers like Thomas Chippendale created iconic pieces that are still admired today. Today, chairs come in a wide variety of styles and designs to suit any taste or budget. Number 1. Light bulbs. Light bulbs are a common household item that we take for granted every day. But did you know that their invention was a pivotal moment in history? The first incandescent light bulb was invented by Thomas Edison in 1879, but he wasn't the only person working on this invention. In fact, there were several competing inventors at the time, each trying to create the perfect light bulb. Edison's light bulb was significant because it was the first to last for an extended period of time, around 1,300 hours. This made it practical for everyday use and set the stage for the widespread adoption of electric lighting. Today, light bulbs come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors, and they're essential to our daily lives. Check out these 20 everyday items with wild origins. Subscribe for more cool history.